integrity is among the four we propose is the only one that we haven't phrased ourselves.
Okay.
Actually, also the other one have some link to the previous ethical and legal literature, but the right to mental integrity is actually already recognized in international law. It's in the Article 3 of the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, for example. And there it's strongly associated to the promotion of mental health. So universal access to mental health services. And it's basically the counterpart of the right to physical integrity. So what we suggest is basically a reconceptualization of this right, or a conceptual expansion of this right to mental integrity, as to protect also against illicit and harmful uses of neurotechnology. So the scenarios that I've described before in relation to the right to mental privacy, they all involve unauthorized access to information, to data, and through the processing of this data also to certain sets of information. The right to mental integrity should be the counterpart, that the counterpart right that protects not just the access to data, but also protects from the harms that access can generate, especially if it's combined with an alteration of the functioning either of the underlying neurobiology of the human brain or of the functioning of the device. So to give you a very simple example, if you are, imagine a patient with Parkinson's disease, and you are a user of a deep brain stimulation, which is an implanted type of neurotechnology, which has shown extremely promising effects in reducing the symptoms of Parkinson's disease, especially the essential tremor. And then, so you significantly rely on that technology in order to, function normally in your daily life, in order to eat, in order to go to the restroom and independently, and so on. If a malevolent hacker intercept the signal of your DBS, even using a very simple hack, without accessing any information, but simply by increasing or decreasing intensity, that can lead to significant harm to you, or simply disrupting the functioning of the device. That can lead to significant harm. And this kind of scenarios are not sci-fi. These are, very simple hacks. A lot of brain-computer interfaces rely on wireless channels, such as the Wi-Fi on the Bluetooth channel. And, these wireless channels are notoriously very easy to intercept. And the kind of harm that you can create is in a sort of gray zone, in a sort of regulatory no man's land at the moment. Because it's unclear whether it should be regarded as harm to property or if it should be regarded as harm to a person. From a prima facie, you could say, well, you're disrupting functioning in a device, so this should be considered similar as, just destroying your smartphone, right?
Yeah.
Or destroying, another piece of equipment that you might want to use on a daily basis. But given the significant function that the brain-computer interface has in a daily life of, for example, a Parkinson's disease patient, you might argue, and I personally would say so, that this rather qualifies as a harm to the person and to the mental integrity of the person, rather than as a harm to the property. Because that technological system is so important in the functioning of the person, and it's so much integrated in the motor and cognitive loop of that person, that should rather be considered as a sort of, peripheral extension of that person's brain, rather than as an independent a piece of technological equipment, just like any other property that a certain person might have.
Hmm. And what was your suggested solution to this current dilemma?
What is the dilemma?
So the current legal dilemma between, is it property or is it the person?
Well, that's an open question. I'm actually this is part of my current investigation. There is an interesting theory. It's actually an hypothesis rather than a theory in the philosophy of mind called the extended mind theory. And this hypothesis says basically that if you have an external system, let's say a certain technology, then functions in such a way that if it was implanted in a person's head, if it was part of a person's brain, we would have no doubt to consider that as part of a cognitive process, of a cognitive system. Therefore, it should be considered part of that system. So this is an argument based on, it was originally developed by two philosophers of mind called David Chalmers and Andy Clark. And this analogy that I just made, they call it the parity principle. So if you have basically an external system that functions, it's sort of functionally isomorph to an internal element of a person's cognitive system, say a certain brain area that functions in a certain way, then the mere fact that it's located outside the skull, it's no justification for considering it as independent, as unrelated to the cognitive system. And actually, they take it this argument even farther than simple neurotechnology. They say that even things like a smartphone or a notebook, you know, when you take notes on with pencil and paper, they can function under certain circumstances as part of your internal cognitive system, as part of your memory, for example.
Yeah.
And I think that some instances of this argument can offer a good theoretical substrate for the discussions that we are facing in the field of neuroethics and neurolaw. So personally, I would think that if you destroy, either disrupt function or brain-computer interface that is, you know, very well integrated in the perceptual, cognitive, or emotional functioning of a person, that type of damage should be rather conceptualized as harm to the person and not as harm to the property.
Moving on to